The tires hadn't even kicked up much snow, just that soft, crunchless roll of fresh powder under rubber. Her taillights blinked twice, then vanished down the tree-lined road like nothing had happened. I stood there, in thermal socks and a half-zipped coat, the cabin door swinging gently behind me in the wind. My stitches itched under the gauze. The pain meds hadn't worn off yet, but something colder and more efficient was taking over now. Something older than pain. No rage, no scream, just breath condensing into fog and a silence so wide it swallowed her laughter before it could echo. She thought she'd broken something, left it bleeding in the woods like a mercy kill. But all she'd done was shut the door behind her. Hey, if you've made it this far and you're listening, tap the like button and subscribe. 97% never do, but it helps us keep bringing these stories to life. Inside, the soup she made was still steaming on the stove, but I didn't touch it. I wasn't hungry. I sat back down in the wooden chair by the fire and looked at the spot where her coat had hung, the slight imprint in the doormat from her boots. My hands were still trembling, not from fear, not from cold, but from restraint. I could still feel the ghost weight of the phone as she tossed it, not at me, just away, like trash too heavy for the Maldives. I didn't run outside after it. I knew better. Snow like this could hide anything, even intentions. The fire popped once, loud enough to make me blink, but everything stayed still. 2 weeks, she'd said. That's how long she'd calculated it would take me to crack, starve, freeze, or beg. But the cabin wasn't a prison. It was a signal tower. I stood, slowly. My body felt like it belonged to someone else, someone stitched together for spite. I didn't bother searching the snow for the phone. I'd already done the one thing she hadn't thought to plan for. 5 weeks ago, when my doctor warned me the appendectomy might be rougher than expected, I added a note to our financial advisor, a legal contingency in case I couldn't make decisions. She'd signed it herself. Power of attorney, joint account reallocation, the works. Just paperwork, I told her. She never read the things I handed her. She skimmed, smiled, signed. I turned off the stove, poured the soup down the sink. Her cooking always tasted like performance. In the guest room closet behind an old quilt from her grandmother was a canvas bag I'd hidden during our last visit, back when she still called this place romantic. Inside, a backup satellite phone, a fire starter pack, a hard drive, and a folder labeled Snowmark LLC. My name, only my name, was on every page. I dialed slowly, deliberately, through the low static. The line clicked once. Code 3, I said. Asset transferred. She's en route. The voice on the other end paused. Then, understood. First movement confirmed? Confirmed. Cabin. 14 days. Perfect, the voice said. Then we begin. I clicked the phone shut and placed it gently on the mantel. The wind picked up again. Somewhere far off, an engine faded into nothing. She thought she'd written the ending, but she'd only turned the page. She always hated humidity, but you wouldn't know it from the photo she posted. Sun flaring behind her like some cheap perfume ad. Glass lifted mid-toast, one bare leg crossed over the other, his hand on her thigh like he'd earned it. She never tagged locations, but this time she did. Kuramathi Private, it read, in bold pink script under the filtered sky. The caption was worse. New chapter. Left the past in the snow, and that little sparkle emoji she always used when she wanted to look cute but not guilty. There were no likes from mutual friends, just strangers, yoga bots, and a few of her real estate girlfriends from the city. She didn't notice the absence. She was too busy feeling free, drunk on it, drunk on rum and air conditioning, and the kind of attention that only happens when the man next to you doesn't know what you're capable of. The silence from me was her real gift. She thought it meant I was broken. Curled up in that cabin with my little cans of soup and cracked ribs, sobbing into a wool blanket. She waited for a text, then a rant, then maybe a pathetic voicemail. Nothing came. By the second morning, her boyfriend tried to use his card at the hotel's spa. Declined. Twice. He frowned, probably blamed the network. She rolled her eyes and flashed her phone. Just use mine. But when she tapped to pay for the massage, nothing. Account blocked. Try your other one, he said. She opened her app and froze. Balance 0.000, all 3 accounts, even the one she thought I didn't know about. By the time she reached the front desk, pretending to be calm, a man in a pressed linen suit was already walking toward her. Airport immigration. She wasn't supposed to see him again, not for another week. "There's a discrepancy," he said, "with your documents." She blinked, then laughed. "My passport?" "No," he said, "your exit record, and a flagged note from customs in Chicago." "I flew straight," she said. The man didn't flinch. "May we ask you a few more questions inside?" She looked at her boyfriend, expecting confusion, but he was already pulling out his phone, his face stiff. "This is insane," she whispered, brushing sand off her thighs. "It's a beach vacation." "Yes," the man said, holding the door open. "It was." Inside the little beige room that looked like every border office in every airport in the world, she sat down too hard in the plastic chair. The air conditioner hummed above her like a slow warning. They asked her to explain the emergency cash withdrawal from the joint account, the one she'd made the morning she left me. "I had rights to that," she snapped. "Yes," the woman beside him said, tapping a screen, "until a medical protection clause overrode the permissions." Her mouth fell open. "Your husband filed a temporary control shift due to post-operative impairment 3 weeks ago." "That's not possible." "It was approved. Here." They turned the screen. My signature glowed, sharp and clear, next to hers. She stared at it like it might vanish if she blinked, but he couldn't even walk. The woman smiled, small and cold. He didn't need to. He filed it from his attorney's office before the surgery. Silence again, but not the kind she liked, not the kind that made her feel in control. This one pressed in from all sides, like the humidity she'd always hated. She stormed out of the immigration office with her smile long gone and her sandals slapping the tile. Her boyfriend trailed behind, silent for once. At the front desk, she demanded her suite key, but the concierge's polite expression didn't shift. "I'm sorry, Ms. Miller," he said. "Your booking has been canceled. Payment method declined." She blinked. "What? No, that's not possible. I confirmed it twice. I paid in full." The concierge nodded, tapping a screen. "Yes, but the card used to finalize the booking has been flagged. We received notification from the issuing bank 30 minutes ago. It's been reported as compromised." She turned sharply to her boyfriend. "Did you call the bank?" He held up his phone, scrolling with a scowl. "I just got a fraud alert. My whole account's frozen. This is probably because of your card." "My card?" she snapped. "You used yours at the spa?" He didn't answer. His screen lit up again with another alert. She opened her banking app. No facial recognition. She had to type her password. It took 3 tries. Her hands were shaking. Balance: 0. 0 in checking. 0 in savings. Even the long-forgotten vacation account with the palm tree icon and the smug little goal tracker she set last summer. Gone. All of it. Even the emergency credit line she'd opened in her name only, just in case he ever tried to surprise her with a financial mistake. There was no mistake. She called her lawyer. Voicemail. She called again and again. Finally, he picked up on the 4th ring. "Hi, Melissa," he said too slowly. "I'm in the Maldives. Everything's frozen. What the hell is going on?" He paused. She hated when he paused. "Melissa, your husband filed a legal notice 3 weeks ago. Emergency financial protections, a transfer of control on all jointly held accounts." She snorted. "He had surgery. He could barely speak, let alone move." "Correct, which is why he prepared the paperwork before the operation. We filed it with both banks. You were notified by certified mail." "I never got anything." "You signed the acknowledgement digitally." "That's not possible." "I have the signature," he said quietly. "Same day you signed the refinancing documents. Power of attorney was granted temporarily in case post-op complications limited his decision-making." She paced. The ocean looked obscene in the background. Too perfect. Too blue. But why would he do that? Another pause. "You used the account to withdraw $37,000 in 1 day, Melissa. The bank's automated system flagged it. We triggered the clause to protect his assets. I assumed you were both aware." "He said it was for travel," she shouted. "We were going to reconnect." The words cracked as they left her mouth. Her boyfriend had walked away now, phone to his ear, talking in low, tight circles. She was alone in the echo of the marble lobby, waves licking at the edge of the resort. "I want everything reversed," she hissed. "I'm afraid that's not possible," the lawyer replied. "You already signed the release.
It's sealed. I didn't know what I was signing. There was a long, long silence.
Melissa, he said finally, your husband's not as helpless as you thought. And for the first time since she got off that plane, her breath caught, not from the heat, not from the chaos, but from the fact that someone had been playing a much longer game than she ever realized. The flight home felt longer than it should have. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Her boyfriend hadn't even come with her, just handed back the last of her jewelry and said, "I don't want to be involved." His voice was flat, clipped. She didn't even argue. She just walked away, fingers clenched around the boarding pass, the same hand she'd once signed a marriage certificate with. By the time the cab pulled up to their building, the air was sharp with leftover snow, the sidewalks wet and gray. Familiar. She dragged her suitcase across the curb and punched the code into the building keypad. Red. She blinked. Tried again. Red. The door didn't budge. A gust of wind caught the bottom of her coat. She shoved her key into the side entrance. Still nothing. The metal clicked uselessly. Her suitcase thudded over as she reached for her phone, barely holding in the screen building behind her ribs. She called the building manager. "It's Melissa," she said, forcing calm into her voice. "Something's wrong with my access." A pause. "Oh, Ms. Miller. Yes, actually, we were notified last month. The lease was updated." "Updated?" Her voice cracked. "How? By who?" "Mr. Miller. He's listed as sole occupant now. Authorization letter was signed, notarized, everything's on file." She just stood there, wet snow starting to dot her hairline. The doorman looked through the glass but didn't move. Maybe he remembered her. Maybe he'd been told not to. "I'm his wife," she said flatly. "I understand," the manager said, like he was reading from a script. "But according to the documentation, you voluntarily released your claim to the residence under the terms of the refinancing package filed in August." "That's insane. I never did that." "You initialed every page. The packet was processed through our preferred legal partner." She didn't remember any packet. Not clearly. But there'd been something, weeks ago, something he slid across the counter while she was distracted, half watching a show, half scrolling her phone. "It's just for the mortgage," he'd said, holding a pen out. "Keeps our taxes clean. My attorney says it'll streamline deductions." And she signed. She always signed. He handled the boring things, the paper things, the gray background noise of adulthood she never had the patience for. Now she was locked out of the home she used to call hers. She dropped the phone into her pocket and grabbed her suitcase. Her nails dug into the handle until the skin around her knuckles turned white. The registry office was cold and indifferent. White walls, old carpet, stale coffee smell. She waited 20 minutes while the clerk clicked around on her keyboard, too slowly. Then the woman turned the monitor. "Power of attorney granted to Mr. Miller, effective 3 months ago, covers financial, legal, and property matters, voluntarily signed, notarized. I want to revoke it." The clerk didn't flinch. "You can't revoke a document that's already been actioned and sealed, unless you demonstrate coercion." She leaned in. "I didn't know what I was signing." The woman stared at her, unimpressed. "Then you shouldn't have signed it." Melissa's mouth opened, but nothing came out. She took the printed copy and walked outside like her body wasn't connected to her anymore. Everything was white and hollow and far away. She sat on the edge of the concrete steps and opened the folder. Her own signature stared back at her, neat, confident, like someone sure of her place in the world, there, just under the signature line, in fine print. Full and irrevocable authority granted to Mr. Miller to act in the interest of both parties for matters of joint and individual asset protection. She remembered laughing when he said it was for tax reasons. Remembered teasing him about being too organized. She never asked what else was in the file. Never checked, never looked. She had thought she was marrying someone safe, but safe doesn't plan this far ahead. The call didn't even ring. It just went straight to, "This number is no longer in service." She stared at the screen like it had lied to her. Tried again. Same result. No voicemail, no forwarding, nothing. She searched his name in her contacts, hoping maybe she'd saved a work line, a backup. He always had backups. But every attempt hit a dead end. Even the old Gmail bounced. She remembered the name of his company email and typed it in fast, fingers jittery with caffeine and something darker, message undeliverable. She sat frozen for a moment, then opened LinkedIn. He wasn't there either. No profile. Not even the old one with the cringy profile picture and that awful bio he wrote 5 years ago. Builder, thinker, tired, gone. Her foot tapped against the tile. She told herself it didn't matter, told herself he was just hiding, licking his wounds somewhere, that this was all theatrics. But a voice under all the noise said otherwise. Said, look deeper. She got in her car, drove north through slushy traffic to his former office park. Same building with the same ugly awnings. She'd only visited it twice, once for a holiday party, once to drop off lunch when he forgot it. Both times, he'd been quiet after. Not cold, just quiet. Like bringing her there made something click that he didn't like. The receptionist was new, young, bright lip gloss. She glanced up from her screen. Hi, I'm trying to reach my... Melissa paused, then cleared her throat. I'm looking for Michael Miller. He used to work here. The receptionist frowned politely. Oh, I don't think we have anyone by that name anymore. Melissa offered a tight smile. He worked here for years. Engineering division. I can check. Click, click, click. Okay. Yes. Michael Miller. Looks like he exited the company last December. That's not possible, she snapped. He was still getting emails in June. He had a badge. The girl shrugged. Maybe he kept the badge, but in the system, he's listed as inactive. No internal transfers, just terminated. Terminated? The girl clicked again. Voluntary exit, stock options exercised, last activity, signed out of internal server December 14th. That was it. Melissa leaned on the desk, her palms starting to sweat. So what does he do now? The girl hesitated. I'm not sure we're allowed to say. I'm his wife, Melissa said, sharper than she meant to. I was. That was enough. The girl tapped again, then pulled up something from a shared folder. Well, he was listed as external speaker for our partner summit last spring. Keynote speaker, actually. Melissa blinked. He gave a keynote? The girl nodded. Yeah, it was at a tech conference in Denver. Topic: Scaling Secure Architecture for Next-Gen Medical Logistics. It says here, oh, she tilted the monitor slightly. Melissa read the listing once, then again. Michael Miller, founder, Snowmark Systems. Her ears started ringing. What the hell is Snowmark? The girl just shrugged. Melissa stepped back slowly, her vision narrowing. She remembered the white binder, the one with the snowflake on it, something he kept next to his side of the bed. She never opened it. Thought it was boring. Prototype stuff, he'd said. But he hadn't been recovering. He'd been retreating. Quietly, deliberately. Pulling his name out of every system she could reach. Deleting traces. Building something new behind her back. Not a woman, not an affair, a company, and she had never asked a single question. The envelope was thick and unmarked. No return address, no postage. Just slipped under the motel door sometime between the vending machine run and her second glass of wine. Melissa stood frozen, fingers hovering above the paper. She hadn't ordered anything, hadn't told anyone where she was staying. She tore it open anyway. The first thing she saw was herself, a grainy, still image, her on the porch of the cabin, arms crossed, chin tilted just enough to say, I'm in control. She flipped to the next page, her and Daniel, her so-called escape plan, in his Jeep, her head thrown back mid-laugh, sunglasses perched on her forehead, mouth open, triumphant. She felt her face burn. Below the screenshots was a small black USB. She hesitated, then walked to the motel desk, plugged it into the battered laptop the front desk had loaned her, and opened the only file inside. It started mid-sentence. He can't even sit up straight without groaning. Her voice said, loud and clear, the audio sharp despite the wind in the background. I swear, if he so much as whimpers one more time, I'm going to throw the soup at his face. Then a muffled laugh. Daniel's voice. You're brutal. He's just so soft, she said. Always has been. Good guy, sweet, but honestly, he's too passive to ever do anything. That's why this'll work. A long pause on the tape. just the sound of her zipper, the cabin door swinging open. Then a second video began. This one darker, sharper, the cabin interior lit by firelight. He's standing in front of the lens, pale, hollow-eyed, still swollen from surgery, but his voice is steady. "If you're watching this," he says, "then she made her move." He takes a breath. Not a dramatic one, a human one, quiet and real. "She thinks I'm weak, that I'll wait, that I'll stay frozen while she disappears. But sometimes," he glances out the cabin window, then back into the lens. Snow preserves more than cold, it preserves clarity. The screen fades to black. Melissa slammed the laptop shut like it might bite her. The motel room swam, the familiar comforter, the cheap prints on the wall, all of it felt suddenly observed. She turned in a slow circle, scanning the corners for hidden lenses. She checked the peephole, double-locked the door. Her breath came in short bursts now. He'd heard her, not just heard, he'd captured it, documented it. She thought her cruelty was clever, thought the words she whispered into Daniel's collarbone would dissolve in warm air and disappear, but they hadn't. They'd landed and grown teeth, and now they were being handed back to her, one by one. She heard the knock on the motel door before she saw the car lights. Not urgent, not soft, just a flat rhythm, like someone who wasn't here to argue. She opened it and found Daniel standing there, hands in his jacket pockets, eyes shadowed from the parking lot glow. She stepped aside. He didn't move. "You forged his signature?" he said. The wind moved her hair into her face, but she didn't brush it away. She started. "Don't," he cut in. "Don't spin it. I didn't forge anything. I signed it. He wouldn't have said no. Not really." "You took money from a joint account," he said, voice low. "After he went under anesthesia." She swallowed. Her hands were colder than the air. "We were leaving anyway." Daniel looked past her into the room, the half-packed suitcase, the discarded wine bottle, the laptop still glowing faintly on the desk, the USB drive beside it. You turned off the backup radio at the cabin," he said. Not a question. "I saw it in the footage." "It wasn't working," she said. "It was. You unplugged it, laughed about it, said, 'Let him find out the hard way.'" Her stomach turned. "You watched that?" He finally looked at her, really looked. "Yeah, I did." "I didn't mean it," she whispered. He shook his head, slow and final. "You stranded a guy who just had surgery 2 hours from the nearest town in a storm. You don't not mean that." She reached out, but he stepped back. "You used me," he said, and the words didn't come out angry. They came out tired. "I thought you were escaping something. I thought he hurt you or trapped you or, hell, anything. But it was the opposite. You made yourself the victim because you knew it was the only way anyone would listen. Daniel, you left him in the woods to rot, and I helped you do it." She felt the words clawing their way up her throat, but nothing came. No defense, no clever phrasing. Not this time. "You lied to me," he said. "But worse than that, you lied like it was casual." The silence between them stretched. Then he turned. No drama, no slammed door, just the dull crunch of gravel under his boots as he walked back to his car and pulled away, headlights cutting across the windows one last time. She stood in the doorway long after he was gone, until the cold numbed her bare feet. Inside, the room was still playing the cabin footage, looping silently now. Her voice caught mid-mockery, frozen in a screen grab. The new chapter had no one left in it. Not a husband, not a lover. Just her, and every version of herself she thought no one would ever see. She didn't wait until morning. The clock on the microwave blinked 2:17 a.m., but she called him anyway. She needed answers, needed someone to blame. The phone rang longer than usual. When her lawyer picked up, he sounded exhausted. "Melissa, I want to sue," she said. "No greeting, just heat. Tell me we can sue him." A pause. No papers rustling, no typing, just breath. "You can't," he said finally. "You already signed a dissolution agreement." "No, I didn't." "You did. Voluntarily. I have the file right here." "I never saw a dissolution agreement. I never signed one." "You did. Electronic signature. Standard DocuSign verification. Dated December 2nd, day before the cabin." She sat down hard on the edge of the bed. "Send it," she said through clenched teeth. The email came 2 minutes later. The document opened slowly on her old laptop, the hotel Wi-Fi stuttering under the weight of its own mediocrity. The title was simple: Miller Marital Asset Dissolution Agreement. There it was, her name, his, and near the bottom, her electronic signature, complete with timestamp and IP address. "I didn't know what it was," she said. It sounded pathetic the second it left her lips. "I thought it was paperwork for Snowmark. He said it was about the startup structure, a tax thing." He didn't respond right away. "There's a note," he said after a moment. "Scroll down." She did. Under the asset clause, there was a line she hadn't noticed. "In recognition of her early feedback, Melissa Miller relinquishes any future claim to Snowmark Systems, including but not limited to ownership, royalties, equity, or profit sharing." She felt the air vanish from the room. "You can't be serious," she whispered. "You signed it," he said gently. "It's airtight." No, this isn't right. He tricked me. He waited until I was distracted and it wasn't a trick," he said. "It was legal. You had every right to read the full document. You were emailed it twice and signed it from your personal device. There was a verification link, a code." "I didn't read it." "That's not a legal defense, Melissa." She dropped her head into her hands. The screen glowed in front of her, the words blurring. "You're telling me I gave up the whole company," she said. "The whole thing. For what?" "Feedback. For your contribution to the idea's origin, yes, that's how it's phrased." "I gave him that idea during a fight," she spat, "over dinner. I said he should stop whining and build something useful if he hated his job so much." "Which he did," the lawyer said softly. "And now it's his. Completely." She wanted to scream, but there was no one to scream at. No one to undo the moment her finger hovered over a screen and she clicked sign without reading. She'd given up everything, not in court, not in a battle, but in a moment of arrogance where she thought the fine print couldn't hurt her. And now that signature was the lock, and she'd thrown away the key herself. The mailbox was crusted with ice, wedged into a row of half-buried slots outside the lodge gift shop. She hadn't checked it in weeks, maybe months. It was the only thing still in her name, some forwarding address she kept from better times. Back when they used to come here for long weekends, pretending it was rustic, charming, our little escape. Now her name looked wrong on the label, like it belonged to someone else. She wrestled the frozen latch open, one envelope, no stamp, no handwriting, just the feel of something too deliberate to be junk and too quiet to be official. She carried it to the car, tore it open in the front seat with cold, stiff fingers. A thermos, the old silver one he always used, banged up, dented along the base where it once fell down the cabin steps. She used to make fun of how attached he was to it. Like an emotional support mug, she'd joked once. Taped to the side was a note written in his hand. "You forgot this." She closed her eyes. That sentence hit harder than any threat. Under the thermos, folded once, was a sheet of paper, yellowed at the edges. Familiar font. Legal header. It was the LLC filing for Snowmark Systems. She scanned down the page. Her name was there, in the section labeled Requested Co-Signer, Unconfirmed. She remembered now. He'd handed it to her one night months ago. Quietly, not pushing. Just said, "Would you look it over?" She hadn't. She was watching a show. Her wine was full. She'd been scrolling through vacation rentals for a trip she never actually planned. Later, she'd said, not unkindly, "Just send it to legal." He hadn't. He'd waited 3 days, then filed it without her. Her name was crossed out. His, bold and singular, filed as sole member, 100% ownership. She traced the line with her fingertip. There wasn't a threat in the envelope, no accusation, no demand for apology. Just this, a thermos, a note, and the one document that proved what he'd known all along. She never looked closely, not at the forms, not at the emails, not at him. She'd assumed there'd always be time to fix it, to spin it, to talk her way back into whatever he built, but this wasn't revenge, it was a receipt, and it said, "You weren't here when it counted." She leaned her head against the steering wheel, eyes dry but burning. The parking lot was quiet. Distant voices from the lodge echoed across the snow, soft and small. She held the thermos to her chest like it might still be warm, but it wasn't. The city felt smaller without him in it. She walked streets that used to hold memory like warmth, his favorite coffee shop, the bookstore they fought in over bad film, that corner where he once waited in the rain with 2 burned lattes and a smile too soft for her mood. But now it all felt staged, like a set after filming had wrapped. The chairs still sat by the windows, the lights still changed on time, but he was nowhere. Yet the rumors could... He's back, someone said at a panel. Snow marks expanding, another whispered at a gallery. She went, not because she thought he'd talk to her, but because some part of her needed to know he hadn't disappeared, that he wasn't just a ghost haunting her inbox and memory. She stood outside his office building more than once, coat pulled tight, pretending she had a reason to be there. Once she caught a reflection she thought was him in the mirrored glass. Her breath caught, but the figure turned, and it wasn't. She left letters at reception, short ones, some apologetic, some angry. One just said, "You win." No answer. Snowmark's logo began to appear everywhere, quietly, not flashy, just present. On conference listings and articles, on the back of a medtech startup's website, the kind of presence that didn't shout but didn't go away either. She stopped eating much. Sleep came in fits. A gray quiet wrapped around her days. And then, one morning, it happened. Under her motel door, no knock, no sound, lay a card. Not an envelope, just a heavy square of black cardstock, folded once, hand-cut. She picked it up carefully. Her fingers already knew it was him. Inside, a single line in black ink, no signature, no flourish. "You left me in the snow. I buried you in the fine print." She sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, the card in her lap. There was no threat in the message, no hatred, no heat, just something cooler, older, final. A man who once waited for her in warmth, now erased her in silence, not with fury, but with precision.